Okay.
Thank you,
So
Michael.
I'm running Pro Tools right now. So Pro Tools is actually functioning as our digital workstation, and I'm running it from the 360. So I've got my transport control on the UF1. I also have the ability to do transport on the UF8. Something that will glide across as we go is you'll notice that there are some repetition, but there's also some unique elements to it. So what I'm showing you right now is the 360 displays. So what you notice on the 360 displays are the meters are very high quality. They're showing us dynamics. They're showing us a lot more information, a lot more detail versus the different digital workstations. They will have a very strict way of doing abbreviations, for example, or a very strict way for how you work with a plugin. So if I say, show me a plugin on this channel, I select that plugin, the data is a bit more are difficult to maneuver around. So you'll see the information here is the same data that we were looking at in the meter display over here. So what ultimately 360 does is it just organizes what the digital workstation generally has a very specific way of managing. And the problem with that specificity is that every digital workstation plugin has its own organization. So, for example, your parameters could be laid out a very specific way on the UF8 for one plugin, let's say one compressor, and then you switch to another compressor, and that has a completely different organization. By using 360, what we're actually doing is we're reorganizing those parameters. Now, that comes at a specific use of a specific set of plugins. So let me switch over to Pro Tools so we can see exactly what I mean. So, it's easier. Just make sure I've got the right desktop. Yes. Okay, so this is the 360 environment. So, and in the background, we've got Pro Tools. So on here, what you're able to see is what's connected that is 360 compatible. So in my case, I have a UF1, an SSL12, which is my IO. This is what you're hearing me through and what I'm playing back through. And the UF8, which is on the desk over here. So this organizes, I can move these around. So if I want certain order of UF8s, let's say, for example, I have 3 UF8s and I want to organize them. This arrangement allows me to do that organization. Each of the digital workstations, of course, is available here. So in my case, I have Pro Tools, I've got Logic on layer 2, and I've got Cubase on layer 3. Once I go into each of these DAW controllers, I can then see how they're laid out. So in my case, this is my plugin mixer is running on my UF8. This environment shows me my interface. So this is what my interface looks like. And you'll notice we try to work with everything to resemble the workflow that's made us famous. SSL, if there's a focus of SSL, or one of our key focuses is how do we make things as easy and quick and fast to work with as possible. So what we did is we chose a mixing interface for the to control the IO, the SSL12. So
Fady, we're saying your desktop, not the monitor.
Oh, you lost. I apologize. Somehow that got switched. Is that working?
Fady's video director quit on him today.
Let me try that again. Try desktop, share.
There you go. Now we've got it.
Now you got it.
Yes, sir.
So, okay, we're seeing the UF8 right now, right? Jeez.
We like that. Fills up the screen.
Yeah, I'm actually wanted to try that one more time. Yeah, it keeps quitting for some strange reason.
Is there a way to pin it?
Okay. So I'm sharing, you're seeing Pro Tools right now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. That got
I can't.
switched for
I
some
can't.
reason.
I can't hear it though. I can't hear what you're playing.
Oh yeah, I just had it lowered so that it doesn't
Okay.
interrupt with what I'm saying. That's all. So the interface that you're seeing right now is the SSL 12 interface. So this is an IO. So it's got analog inputs, it's got digital IO and analog outputs. We use EffectSense to manage headphone system. So if I'm plugging my headphones like I have right now, I can do my own mix using the EffectSense. So it resembles all of the faculties of a typical SSL mixer, but it's actually working within the confines of the interface. So the interface essentially behaves like an SSL mixer. Now this interface here, we call that the 360 mixer. I'll open this up so you can see it a bit more. What this is showing me is the instances of channels that are on Pro Tools that have an SSL channel strip. We flip back to Pro Tools and look at Pro Tools Mixer. Here's Pro Tools Mixer. You'll notice at the top of every one of these channels, I've instantiated an SSL plugin. And those are, of course, available to me on the controller. But where they become very handy, just hit the 360 button on the UF8, is I've got a reorganized SSL style mixing environment. So this is still looking at the same name conventions that Pro Tools is providing. So the mixer is basically looking at Pro Tools and saying, tell me how many channels you got. And it's laying this out organizationally, very easy for someone to work on. So when we flip over to the controllers themselves, back to the display here, what you notice is that wherever there is an SSL channel strip, there is all of these faculties like the compression, the low pass filter. If I want to adjust that, it's all easily organized. So here's my low frequency, low mid frequency, low mid gain, low mid Q. And all of this is easy to gravitate to instead of, if we go back to Pro Tools and we look at that very same plugin, you notice I have to scroll through a lot of pages, and most of the time they're kind of all over the place. Whereas if I'm doing it here, everything is easily organized. So I can move around very, very quickly. Here's my compression attack. So if I want to adjust my attacks, I can do that really quickly. If I want to go to RMS peak or my release time, my threshold time, everything is at my fingertips. So it makes it real easy for me to move around the mix, as big or small as it happens to be, and be able to do the mixing process very, very quickly and very easily. So I just showed it to you here on the SSL UF8. The UF1 is a smaller example of a UF8. So in it, it has a bit more comprehensive transport. So this transport is much more traditional style transport control. You've got the ability to scrub and fast forward, rewind. You also have these sub menus over here where if you select this button, you're able to turn on, turn off your different automation modes. This fader follows, of course, whatever selected fader. So if I flip this back here, you see what this is doing is this is the selected single fader control. However, it doesn't ignore the other faders. Notice that even when I'm scrolling around, and this is going to be my one controlled fader, I always have access to the next 3 adjacent faders, and these are touch sensitive controls. So in general, I always have about 4 faders available to me at a glance. Either the primary fader here with the subsequent faders after, or if I select that, it's the faders before it. So I can see a lot of detail without really having to move around. And of course, all of it is touch sensitive, whether I use this fader or I use this knob. So although it looks like a single fader controller, it's actually a four fader control that's available to me all the time. And I can either scroll 1 fader at a time or bank left and right, 4 faders at a group. Up on top here, it's showing me my my transport time code. You can select this area here and you can see various elements, like if I want to see my focus, if I say focus pan. So now I'm selecting the pan controls. If I select that again, I have various controls like my fine controls for plugins. My aux sends are available to me here. So this becomes aux send A, aux send B, E, and all the various aux sends that are available to me. This display not only is used for your DAW, but if you select this mode control, you can now see more information. So let's say, for example, if I hold this button down and I can say, show me plugin controls. So what this is now showing me is it's showing me the actual plugin controls we were just looking at on the UF8. They're available to me over here. So I can select the various functions of the plugin from here. If I select that again, I'm going to show you this other plugin called the meter plugin. The meter plugin, this is a plugin that ships with the UF1. And it's an entire meter section. It's got several features on it. Let me see if I can show it to you on Pro Tools really quick. So I've got this version instantiated right now on my master fader. Okay. I'm just going to raise the volume really quick so we can see it working. Okay. So the plugin is free with the purchase of the UF1. Normally it's $99. And as you can see, it's a pretty comprehensive set of meters. So you've got your main master meters here, which you can set up for linear or non-linear control over here. So you can adjust the various, you can use linear ×2. You can use K12 standard, K14. All of the references are presets that you're able to dial in. You can either use the presets that are on here, or of course you can design your own if you choose to. The other thing that you notice is that you've got a phase meter. So this is the Lysergy, as if I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So it gives us your phase display. And next to that, you've got your VU meter, excuse me, which I can select from this button up here. So this is my standard VU. I can switch that to be a PPM meter as well. And last but not least, my RMS display here, my real-time analyzer. I can dial that to be really high resolution. I could focus on specific frequencies. I can adjust the sensitivity of it and the gain. Now, what's really nice about the UF1 is that its display is very, very quick. So it's able to reflect those changes very, very quickly, just like a real dedicated meter would manage. So that part of the display could become your dedicated display for this plugin all the time. So if you want to have access to that information all the time, you can just select the mode and select that plugin, and it becomes that display. Is that clear? I'm sorry, I'm trying to be the video switcher here while I'm doing this, so apologize, I'm a little clumsy at it. Hopefully that's coming across. So this could continue to be my Pro Tools controls while this meter is adjusting and displaying that meter plugin. A few other things I just wanted to touch on are the ability to look at that same plugin mixer we just talked about, the one in the SSL 360. One of the nice things about being able to look at this display is I can dial a specific channel and see its, let's see if I've got this right. Not behaving the way I had actually hoped for it. So what it does is it gives me an additional level of display, so that normally when over here I'm looking at my EQ, I can also see the visual element of it here. So I have two ways of interacting with the EQ. So I have the visual display, but I can also adjust that from the SSL UF8 individually per channel, or one EQ at a time. So what this does really is it provides you an additional facet to how you look at the information. You can look at it graphically here if you choose, or you can dedicate this display to the meter plugin that we talked about earlier. So even though you may have the two of these sitting side by side, they can all be designated to show you different facets of your mix. Or if you're just an owner of one or the other, you're able to pretty much replicate on a smaller scale with the UF1, what you can do on the UF8. Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. There's a left buttons next to the faders on the far left. Can you explain what those are for? The other unit.
The
Down,
UF8?
down, where your hand is, your palm is.
Right here.
No, go up.
These here.
There,
Yes.
those guys. Thanks.
Yes. So in my case here, these can be either my send assignments or my plugin assignments. So if I'm if this is unselected, it becomes send A, B, C, D available to me up on the channel here. If I'm in, so as you can see right there, and now it says send A, send B. These become my aux sends for each individual channel. If I select this button, it becomes my plugin selection. So if there is a channel I've selected and there's a plugin on it, select that, it pops up the plugin on my Pro Tools window for whatever's instantiated on plugin insert 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so forth. The pages shows me if the plugin, like for example, let's say you're a Logic user. In Logic, the ability to page left and right allows me to see all of the available parameters at one clip on the 8 locations, on 8 displays. In the case of Pro Tools, that only provides 4 parameters to display. So again, it really depends on which digital workstation you're running. This will see some slight variation from DAW to DAW. Logic will take advantage of every encoder that you have. Pro Tools will limit the availability to just 4 encoders. And that's actually typical of all the digital workstation. They all take advantage of all the encoders. Pro Tools is really the only one that puts this one particular limitation. Does that help clarify
That helps tremendously. What I'm not seeing is
Mhm.
some sort of dedicated macro buttons that can be assigned to specific things inside your DAW, like set nudge value or move a region by a bar or a division.
Right. Right. That's a very good question. Let me switch back to the screen, the computer screen here. You should be seeing my, okay, so what you're looking at right now is the parameter controls for the different layers. So in my case, I'm looking at layer number 1, which is Pro Tools. Now notice that these buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually pertain to the soft keys that are on the controller here. So if you see these soft keys here, or if you look at the soft keys that are available on the UF1, the same applies to the UF1 as it would to the UF8. They have these accessible soft keys. And what the soft keys do, switch back really quick, is it gives me an opportunity to design what each of these keys will do. So if I'm on layer number 1, I have 8 available keys. Right now on layer 1, they're set for transport features. But layer number 2 and 3 have different parameters. So if you choose, you can use one of these empty ones, or you can design your own and select this pencil key. And from there are 2 things you can do. You can do a DAW command, and these DAW commands are hardwired to the MCU protocol that the DAW is utilizing, or in the case of Pro Tools, the Huey protocol. So what you're looking at, this list, is specific to this DAW. Or you can design your own macros. So if you want to put in, let's say, a keystroke, this keystroke, for example. Well, I can't really do the keystroke right now because it will change my computer. But you can type in a keystroke of commands and store that so that this button becomes that keystroke or collection of keystrokes. So, for example, I do things like create a new track on Pro Tools. So select N, Command N, and then type the word guitar. That becomes my guitar track building plugin. So rather than to do that function constantly, if I want to build a new guitar track, I either go to that layer, I select guitar button, and it creates a track and it names it guitar. Because what it's doing is just playing back the keystrokes that do that function. So with that, you could pretty much do anything that is available on an ASCII keystroke. So that includes every key command that Pro Tools currently supports. In the case of other digital workstations, you could design your own key commands. So in other workstations examples, nothing is off the table. Anything could be assigned to a key command in whatever architecture you choose. So in their case, everything is on the table. You can pretty much design a keystroke for everything the software is able to support. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. The only thing that is missing is a repeat function. If I want to repeat like a move region by X ticks and have it repeat every second or something, or every fraction of a second. I won't mention where this is implemented, but you can guess. Okay. But it looks great.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, like I was saying, if it's addressable by a keystroke, then it's possible to work with. So it all just depends on whether it's available as a keystroke or not. If it isn't, then the answer is no, it can't be controlled in this format. But if the software allows this function that you just described to be assigned to a keystroke, then it's just a simple matter of mapping the same keystroke to one of these buttons, and it becomes available.
That's good. The macro is very important for what I do. So thanks.
And the macro is also take into account any holds, any keystroke holds, or any elaborate keystroke is available for you to map, including things that have to be held down in a certain sequence, for example. So that kind of opens the door to pretty much everything that's available on keystroke control.
Great. And Fady, what about the UC1?
Yeah, I apologize, but I did not have the UC1 available today to set up for it. What the UC1 adds to this system is a one knob, one function control of the channel strips and the bus compressors. Now, what does that basically do is, as you're scrolling along in the UF8 or the UC1, and you happen to have a UF1, and you happen to have a UC1 next to you, the UC1 follows the channels that you're selecting and immediately shows you the display of the channel strip on a single knob display. So it makes it real easy for you to just dial, adjust, dial, adjust, dial, adjust, and not have to really worry about where the parameters are on my digital workstation. And if there's one key factor of a console that should be mentioned, is everything is easy to learn. It's like learning to play guitar. You know where things are. Once you know where they are, you know how to reach for them. Once you know how to reach for them and you do it every day, it becomes part of muscle memory. You don't think about it anymore. The UC1 is an excellent tool for that purpose specifically, because you can just, it basically makes it working like you're working on an SSL. You dial a channel, all the parameters of that channel's EQ, dynamics, compression, filters immediately pop up on the display. And again, in that case, it's also automatable. So you're able to dial automation and automate those features, the same as you have with the UF1.
Fady, let's thank you. Let's take a question. F3 Schumann says, is it USB-A or USB-C? We provide both. Is it USB powered? Could you talk about the power scheme if you had all three USB devices? How do you recommend people go about connecting them?
When the UF1 and the UC and the UF1 and the UF8 have USB-A and USB connections. Generally, you're able to select the cable that you need. Let's say, for example, your computer has a USB-A connection. We give you a USB-A with an adapter that allows you to set it up with a C to C or C to A connection. What you do is you plug it into your USB on your computer, or in my case, I have a USB hub, powered hub. I plug that into the UF1 via USB-C, and then I use the USB-A connection and daisy chain to the UF8. Now you should be able to do that across all three, utilizing one USB port. Yes.
Sorry, so that was I actually do IT for a living. So my question was, technically, can I daisy chain between all three and then just from out of one go into my system and run with one? Now, assuming and presuming that all three have their own separate power supplies, that means I don't have to worry about the USB drawing so much power, trying to push power to these devices because they have their own standalone power sources.
They are powered from a power brick.
Or brick.
Each unit, each one has its own power brick. So they're separately powered, and they don't draw on your USB port. What you do want to be concerned about is the length of the cable. So if your daisy chain gets really long, Let's say,
No,
for example, you own 3 UF8s. The chain
Mhm.
becomes much longer. At that stage, you want to put more of them into your powered hub instead of daisy chaining them.
What if I use like a FM cable donut? They're this kind of old school tech, but they're basically these clamps that go around the cables to help prevent EF from turning your cable into an antenna. They worked in the Onkyo used to use them back in the 80s, and they were popular when you were
Yeah.
doing your systems.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
and the last question is there any optic connectors in the backs of these? I've not looked them up yet. If I want to do optic out?
No, there's no optical ins or outs, but there are TRS TS connections, excuse me, that are usable for switches or
Mhm.
if you have like a foot pedal or a you can utilize that input and assign that to whatever trigger you want to use it for. So let's say you want to punch in and punch out, and you're playing guitar and you want to just hit the pedal to punch in and punch out. You can assign it to record in, record out.
Let's
to do that.
get to some of the other questions. So as far as they have their own legs, and we supply the screws and
Yes.
the tool, but they sit next to each other. They're all the UC1, UF8, and UF1 are all the same front to back height, and you can adjust the slopes the same, but they just
That's correct.
they do not interlock. However, there are at least 3 manufacturers that I'm aware of that make either a steel frame to connect them all together, or a wooden case with a front buffer bar that you can encase 1, 2, or 3, or 5, or 6 even. We've seen it.
Yeah.
You go to the Facebook user groups for these products, you'll see the range of devices that are out there. On the USB hub issue, it starts to get, as Fady started to talk about, more complex when you might have up to 4 UF8s and a UC1 and a UF1 and an SSL12 interface, all of which is supported with the 360 software and physically actually work together. So that would require a USB hub.
Yeah, because the total length of the USB cable becomes too long for one port to support.
Yeah, in the powered hub. But
Yeah.
the powered hub, Fady, you had a great one. It was a $40 device. I think the more is more here.
Yes. I mean, I'm not sure if I have enough cable to actually pop it out and show it to you, but it's a 14 port USB hub that you can get on Amazon. It's the manufacturer's Brov SS, BROVSS. It's been incredibly stable for me. I have multiple workstations, and each of one uses one of these boxes for USB. It's never failed. It's fantastic for these kinds of things.
And the other question, Fady, yes, Logic Pro X, and we do work with Luna. And what about Reason, Fady?
Yeah, well, Reason will work as a general logic control. Just to give you an idea of what is available, I'll show it to you really quick. So these are the current digital workstations that we list: Pyramix, Luna, Studio One, Ableton, Cubase, Logic Pro, Logic X as well, and Pro Tools. Now, Logic is a general control MCU controller, so other products fall under that umbrella. For example, Reason, if you have, when you set it up for MCU control, you'll be able to control the faders, the panners, whatever. I think faders, panners, transport are available on Reason. Not much more than that, though. I don't think it gets into plugins or any of the other elements. It just strictly works with fader controls.
And thank you, Fady. Other questions? They are not Ethernet devices. They're purely
USB.
And
Yeah.
I'll say that of the literally thousands of devices that we've shipped of all 3, the level of satisfaction based on the build quality and the operational attributes are pretty strong. As far as the UC1 channel controller, we have currently 2 profiles. I don't know if you mentioned them, Fadia, wasn't following.
We have 2 plugins that, well, actually it's 3 plugins, sorry, that ship with the UC1, a license for the channel strip, the bus compressor. The channel strip is the 9K channel strip, but now there's also a 4000B channel strip, which models the first generation SSL 4000. This is a console that was only about 6 of them available in the marketplace, and they have some pioneering EQs and dynamics, and there's also a Jensen transformer model from the microphone pre, and it's a very, very different perspective on an SSL EQ and dynamic, and it's an incredibly punchy and old school style compression and EQ.
And more to come, and we're going to just park it at that. But
Leave it at that. Yeah.
the gift that keeps giving. When we came out with it, it just had the 9000 J series or K, whichever they're calling it, channel strip, which had its own contours. And then the B, going back to earliest 4000. And as Barry and I have talked recently, the 4KB, now we have a physical dynamics module, but the key differentiator that is not widely known is that in the first 4000 B series, which were few made, the channel dynamics were identical to the bus compressor. And a prominent engineer had told me that many years ago. I don't know what the name of the studio that of Hollywood. Anyway, so it was step controls, just like the 4KB dynamics module we have for the 500. So it's a very different approach on the EQ style and the dynamics, and you get them both included, and more to come. But when you're operating in that environment with the UC1 in front of you, it's like being on a console. And when you have it with the plug-in system, the monitor, it's really great to see it on a big screen. It's for those of us who've been around consoles for as long as we have, it's quite an exciting way to operate in a workstation. Seeing it on the screen and being able to select between the UF1, UC1, UF8, and the SSL 12 is mighty impressive.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed when you were demoing the screen display on the UF1, you were demoing the graphic display of the EQ and showing how you can control it from the UF1 or the UF8, control your EQ. I noticed when you were turning some knobs on the UF8, it wasn't changing the graphic display on the UF1. Or did I just miss something?
No, you didn't actually, because I didn't have it set up correctly. That was me.
Okay.
So yeah, you're able to. Let me just switch over here.
It's okay. I believe you. I just noticed that, so
yeah,
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, that was just user error on my part. What it does is it gives you another display. Simple as that. It gives you a graphic display while accessing the various elements of the EQ individually. Because on the UF8, it gives you, for example, the low frequency gain. It's scattered. All the low frequency gains are adjustable on each channel. So if I'm on the same channel and they're locked together, I'll get the graphic display while I'm actually adjusting it on the UF8. Yeah. Or I can just as simply reach for the same exact control on the UF1. But it gives me two ways of looking at the information at the same time.
Thank you. Next question, any immersive implementation? Not particularly. These are purely controllers, but there's nothing stopping you from using these in an immersive environment. They're not immersive by nature. Nothing within the products lend themselves to making it more immersive or facilitating immersive work, other than if you're wanting to control multiple channels on faders, you have them, and you can have up to 4 of them. Which one?
I should add, Phil, if you are on a digital workstation software like Logic or Cubase, they have multi-layer panning. So in the pan control, if you click down on them 2-3 times, what you'll notice is the first time you click on them is you'll get front, left, right. Click on them again, it gives you pan, front, back. And depending on how many conditions the panner has, it'll have multiple layers. So layer for left, right, layer for front, back, and layer for top, up and down. It's capable of doing it, but you have to do it in layers.
Well, my question would be, and I don't know why it hasn't come up before, but if it's in, let's say the Dolby Render Panner plugin, is it a plugin and is it controllable from the UF8 or UF1?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'll look into that.
Great. Next one is which is the first piece of hardware? My vote gets the UF1 because it's so comprehensive and it has a fader, but they're all good first pieces. But the UF1 being the master commander, I would say it's.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that too. Yeah, it's small, it's comprehensive, it provides a lot of access to in a very compact position. Yeah,
great. And then as far as prices go, the UF8, which was the first one we introduced over 2 years ago at this point, and that is currently at $1,299.99, $1,299.99. And these are the street prices. Then the UC1 we came out next, that's currently at $799.99. That's the channel controller. And then the UF1, which we introduced a couple months ago, going like gangbusters, is $699.99. They're all doing very well, and I will say that the reliability on these units is extremely high. The way we make these and the places we make them, I'm continually impressed with how reliable they are, and we do incredibly well.
And they all share that brushed aluminum design. The cases are all metal. They're built to last. They're definitely built to last.
And we also, as much as Fady likes to talk with everyone, and I do, we have dedicated tech support. These guys are great. They have the products in front of them. They interact. They both write music, and one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and we deal with the cases pretty well. And if anyone ever runs into a problem, they know they can rely on us in the SSL tradition, of course.
If you don't mind, I've got 2 quick questions.
We love them.
Great. Is the software is actively in development? It's not stagnant like other companies, right?
No,
100%. So new features, bug fixes, enhancements.
We are at version 1.6 for 360, and when we come out with 360, 1.5, watch the space. But this has gone through 5 iterations in 2 years. The company is actively developing, and the lead project manager for these controllers is on the forums and leading people when they get those questions, like in the hour. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing it.
I'm just going to say that I'm a Logic user and I deal with Dave Earl directly at Apple.
Yes.
And every time Yukon drops a new release, something breaks and it takes forever to get it fixed. And now Avid's going through whatever they're going through. I'm not hopeful relying on Yukon going forward. So that's it, but I'd like to know what the plugin experience is like with these controllers, with like Plugin Alliance, SSL emulations, or Sound Toys, or what happens when you bring up a third-party non-SSL plugin in your DAW.
Right. Yeah. In general, as a plugin designer is provided a list of command inputs and outputs that essentially, when that plugin is instantiated, it gives the digital workstation understanding of what's available for automation. The list and the order in which that list is based is dependent upon the manufacturer themselves, the plugin manufacturer. Unfortunately, there is no commonality to the logic of this. So every manufacturer will have a list of their own. And what the UF1 and the UF8 do is they list them consecutively from left to right on their encoders. And you bank pages to get through the various plugin commands. Some plugins are very good about this organization, others are not. But as long as they have automation capabilities, every third-party plugin is displayed on the UFWay 8 or the UF1.
Can you just pick one plugin and just show us what the user experience is like?
Okay, let me. switch
And
over
also, you play well with UAD?
so far, yeah.
Good to
Yeah, I
hear.
mean, we have
Good to hear.
Luna. We have the Luna application where now it's directly supported. So yeah, there's more things coming down the road for that as well.
But let's be clear, on the UC1 channel controller, which is not displayed here, it is only the SSL plugins.
Right.
And,
No, I'm interested in exactly the setup we're seeing here.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up someone's plugins. Let's say how about the Pro Tools channel strip? This is the general Pro Tools channel strip. And I've got it instantiated on this channel here. And I'm just gonna scroll over to that.
We're supposed to be seeing your computer screen.
I have to show it. Well, let me show you the computer screen first, and then I'll show you how it looks like. So there's my channel. Okay, over here. And this is the plugin that I've selected. Okay, and so I'm going to switch back now to the top camera so you can see. So I've got this plugin selected on this channel. Okay, hopefully you can see it now. This is the channel right here in question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select plugin, and I'm going to select that instance, which is on layer number 2. Layer number 1 is Pro Tools is SSL. Layer number 2 is the Pro Tools channel strip. So now what you're seeing, the first display is showing me the trim controls. The next is the volume
Now we
control.
want to go back to your overhead camera.
Okay, I thought I was showing you my overhead camera. It's tough to actually do this.
Thank you.
While using this. So what I'm doing is I'm banking. See how I'm banking left and right over here? Page left and right. And you're seeing different parameter control. So this is my threshold, and this is my attack, and this is my ratio. And if I go back to the screen display, you see how this is. Can you see them both now?
We're not seeing your screen display. Oh, there it is.
Okay, there you go. So that's me right now controlling the parameters on the control surface itself.
Okay.
So what Pro Tools does is you notice how it gives you a little halo, a blue halo around plugins?
Right.
Those halos are indicating what page the DAW controller is selected. So as you scroll through the various pages, different halos appear, indicating to you what page you're actually on. This is unique to Pro Tools. However, I should strongly emphasize this. In the case of Logic, Logic uses every available encoder. So let's say you have one UF8. You get a page of 8 parameters that you scroll through. You bank through 8 at a time. If you have 2 of them, that's 16. If you have 3 of them, that's 24. And up to 4 of them, it's 32. So you can bank in 32 pages at a time, or parameters at a time, depending on how many of these controllers you happen to have.
Thank you. I think the UF1, one of the best comments I ever heard was someone who was a console user and a workstation user, and they said that the UF1 was a life changer. I didn't see them get a new life, but we're very happy to hear that. No presentation will be complete without a little British commentary. Phil Scholes, are you around? Phil? Yeah, he's on. I saw him on, but he might be otherwise engaged. Sorry, Fady, anything else? Any other questions?
Yeah, and just to point out that in the case of the UF1, the key differentiator is you have fewer controls. So where the UF8 has more controls you can dial, the UF1 has 4. It does pretty much the same exact thing. Channel plugin controls are available right there. I can select plugins, or I can select pans, I can select various different parameters. But because you're limited to the four knobs, you're just simply working with 4 knobs instead of 8. That's really the only difference.
I have a question with regards to the SSL 12. Is that actually providing any benefits to this ecosystem currently, or is just a DDA?
Glad you asked.
It's a great question, actually. Well, obviously it's my interface. In my case here, it provides me my IO into my computer. But because it's working in the same ecosystem,
Sorry about that. Are you part of the board, correct? Or no, I'm just trying to get hold of my guy. I'm in the middle of a Zoom, so it's going to take me a minute.
Here's Phil. We'll come back. Phil, a little English commentary before you get engaged. Anything you want to add? No, he doesn't. All right, back to you, Fady.
So in the case of when I select, okay, I'm just going to jump really quick into the interface. So what you're looking at right now is 360, but I'm looking at the specifics of the SSL 12 interface. So I love the fact that it looks at the interface like it would look at a mixer, because I'm very used to low latency monitoring using effect sends. This is typically how you would do headphone mixes on a console. And it's just really easy to do. I can select different profiles. So if I want to switch or load a profile for tracking, or a profile for an entire band to come in and mix on and record, the interface not only accommodates the analog ins and outs. You see right there, analog 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can highlight my analog ports. I can highlight my playback channels. I can highlight my master buses, my aux masters, and my digital IO. It does have ADAT input on it, so it can be expanded upon. So you can record quite a lot of inputs simultaneously on this thing.
Let me touch on this for a second. Thank you, Fady. The SSL 12 has a little better an improvement on the specifications over the 2 and 2 Plus. The numbers are very impressive. It definitely punches above its weight price wise. It's a $499.99 unit. To get this control panel in it with 360, for those of you who know me, you know I get around a couple companies over the last couple of years, and this control panel is top shelf by comparison to all control panels from any interface company. I'm not saying better than something else, but it is least as, from my perspective, as good as the best out there in graphical quality and feature set for nothing. And the way that it interacts with the rest of the ecosystem on the controllers make it hard to beat from my perspective. In addition, the SSL 12 with its 4 mic preamps has 2 sets of speaker outputs. It uses analog 3 and 4 for the B speaker output. So like an SSL console, the second set of speaker outputs. It has a talkback mic, which I'm not aware of another unit under $500 that has a talkback microphone built into the interface. and it even has a selectable impedance for the headphone. So if you like to have a particular headphone and want to match the output impedance of the headphone to your headphone output to the actual headphone itself, we offer you the 2 selections there.
Yeah, this is what Phil is talking about. You're able to adjust impedance levels, so there's different types of headphones that could be supported this way.
Gotcha. So is the oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And just to touch really quick on that second thing about the extra set of speaker ports, those typically those last 2 sets of outputs, 3 and 4 that you see right there, they are set up as line level controls, which are controllable from these faders. But what you can do is you can repurpose them as additional speaker connections. And that's what Phil was talking about. Once you do that, they become speaker set B, and they're now controlled by the monitor system on the SSL 12. You can flip between monitor A, monitor B. You notice a lot of that stuff is on the interface. That a lot of different ways you can use the very same ports. As a matter of fact, if you wanted to, you can even repurpose the headphone outs as extra ports. So they don't necessarily have to be headphones. In case, let's say, you need to multi-channel out, you can actually set them up to be line output controls. So if I select that, that's now turned that into a line level output. And if I set it up to be line level unbalanced, I can get 2 extra ports per headphone out, unbalanced mode, or 1 extra port per headphone port in balanced mode.
Gotcha. So this is kind of left field with regards to SSL products, but I don't think it is. But is the SSL Big 6 compatible with this ecosystem at this time? Because it is USB 3.
The SSL 6, Big 6,
yeah,
is not controllable inside this environment. No, not yet.
That's all I had. Thank you.
So it basically behaves like an 8-channel, 16-channel,
yeah,
A to D, D to A interface
with a great compressor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that thing goes. I mean, there's so much that thing does. Sometimes what I do is I show people how you can dedicate aux sends on the analog ports. Instead of sending them to the analog out, you can send them to one of the digital ins. And by doing that, you can repurpose one of the auxes on your workstation and assign an SSL reverb plugin and feed that reverb plugin out back into one of the returns on the analog mixer, effectively achieving an analog reverb control that way. And you can use that during tracking, for example. A lot of clever things that it does with this.
I currently use the 6. I'm very close to upgrading to the Big 6, but I use it for my ADAT, not my ADAT, Dante return for monitoring the binaural and stereo mixes.
Yeah.
Who's that?
I even set it up for 5.1 in my studio. I use it. It has a separate set of buses. So I'm able to do bus A, left, right, front, bus B, rear, left, right, and then the 2 auxes become my center and sub controls, and that's how I do my 5.1 in the studio with it.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Thank you so much for the information.
My pleasure.
Well, thank you all for coming, and thank you, Fady, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you for letting us hang out with you.
Thank you, Fady,
and thank you so much
Phil,
for your time as well. Appreciate it. Great questions, by the way. Thank you so much for all that.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, y'all. Thank you so much. If you guys have any other questions, get a hold of Barry or myself, and we'll get them to Phil and Fady, and we'll get them answered for you. I'm almost out of voice. You got anything else, Bill? You got anything else, Barry?
Hey, that was great. I hope everybody got something out of it. I did. And I actually own one of these things already, but there's much more to learn, as anyone can tell. And I use it very specifically, the way I use my UF8 is just the 8 faders, and I bank between 8 faders, and I make the moves with my hands. So that's the thing about all this stuff. You use the parts that seem to make sense, and they make sense to me. So.
Let me add one last thing. If we touched on it, stop me. But the plugins that you get with UC1, the channel plugins, I think it was Ted White who said to me, anyone can have plugins. It's the great plugins that make the difference in the day. And everywhere I go, when I talk to people that I know and I trust their integrity about their ears, and they say how much they love our plugins. And of course, we're the source, but the emulations, I won't mention names, people are loving. And this is from friends who design plugins. They love what they're hearing with our plugins. And one of the things we did when we introduced the UC1 was to develop this anti-cramping implementation or technology, which is oversampling in the high frequency, I think 64 times. And the feeling we get from talking with people, not feeling, the reality is that when you go heavy into gain on the high frequencies and other plugins, it tends to collapse the plugin or imaging. And with the anti-cramping technology, it opens it up. So that is something that is particularly built in to the design of the plugin to prevent that unwanted artifact from occurring. And that, plus the overall algorithms that we're delivering, the feedback that we get is stunning. We're up to like 30 plugins now, and it's on a subscription, but the channel plugins themselves and the accolades are pretty favorable. Not pretty,
something else
favorable.
to be aware of. We're M series compliant now, and which has breathed new life into my first generation M1 MacBook Pro. That session I'm playing here is 68 tracks with SSL channel strips on each of them, all running at the same time, and I'm basically using a quarter of my CPU. It's remarkably efficient technology now. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, anybody else got anything? Thank you guys. Seriously, that was amazing.
You're welcome. Glad to be
here.
Great seeing you all. I think Mr. Boddicker, I think we're doing something soon with you. I can't remember if
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
My goal of having my Atmos install done by June of 2022, I've failed. I may. Bruce Black is shooting the room next week. We are today struggling with some of the last Atmos render type installs, like some drivers and stuff. They appear we bought everything, have everything. It just doesn't seem to be. We finally got it to address the HDX. We've been doing stereo for a couple of weeks now, so stereo's great. But the Atmos conversion, and in our case, there's like 600 plus channels of audio back and forth, and we're still trying to get up. I really hope, please God, I mean, every month, I think I'm going to be done. Fortunately, I can do stereo, which is where most of my work is, but I have projects that are due for next year that I really want to get started on. So I thank you for letting me update you. I would really love to have you all here to see it next month. Every freaking week is I have no idea, something gets delayed. And so if you let me have another week to get a handle on this install, if I get this installed, if I can get all the drivers working and everything, then I mean, I'll at least be able to show off the facility and you can hear something. Probably I will not have mixed anything before then, but in the next
month. Just let us know, man. I mean, we'll push it back another month, but just let us. I can't believe we're talking about September's tomorrow morning. I mean, it's
unbelievable. Yeah.
So the year marches on. So
no kidding.
We will keep you all in the loop. Thank you to everyone. It's great seeing Carmen, Haven't seen you in 100 years.
I know. Finally,
Jimmy.
I'm not on the road.
It's great seeing everybody. But thanks, and we'll cut this up, and it'll be up on the web soon. But thank you, Phil. Thank you, Fady.
Pleasure.
Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Okay.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Barry.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Tony.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Get
See you guys
well.
later.
Heal
Bye-bye.
up.
Thank you.
Cheers.